Hey everyone, Harris O'Malley from drnerdlove.com, and in today's episode, I want to give you some advice that, if you use it, will make you 100% happier. It will make your relationship stronger and more fulfilling. It will help you live a more positive life. And you will find that the people that you're meeting and dating are much higher quality than you've ever known. Which, yeah, I know this sounds like the start of a sales pitch, and it's really not. What I want to teach you today is how to recognize and avoid toxic people and toxic relationships, and what to do if you find yourself in one. This is something I feel incredibly strongly about. My first serious relationship was very toxic. I was isolated from my friends, I couldn't do anything that didn't involve her, and I was always living in fear that I was going to do something wrong and get her upset. At the time, I didn't recognize just how many warning signs that I'd been missing. I was always having to manage her emotions and make sure nothing ever went wrong, and I thought this was normal. If I were on vacation or she was out of town, then I had to be on the phone with her every day for hours or else. And I accepted this because, hey, I knew she had trust issues and how much she needed me to get involved in the drama that always seemed to follow her around. And if I didn't, well, that's when I would hear about every awful thing that I'd ever done. I was so amazed that I had a relationship at all that I thought it was fine that I was walking around on eggshells. And I put up with it because, well, if you love someone, shouldn't you be willing to put up with anything? The more you suffer, the more it shows you really care, right? Toxic people live on ideas like that. They thrive on the idea that love means giving until it hurts and then you give some more, that you shouldn't ever argue or disagree with what they want, and that you should break yourself to pieces to make things work, even if you're the only one doing any of that work. If you love someone, if you're really their friend, then you'll shoulder the burden for both of you and ignore all their faults, while you also take all the blame for anything that goes wrong. That's when you find yourself making excuses to others about their bad behavior because other people don't know them like you do. You don't stand up for yourself because that's not what a good partner would do. It's fine that they push you to agree to things that you don't want or demand that you do things that you would never do otherwise, even when those things hurt you. The tricky thing is that sometimes it can be hard to tell when a relationship is toxic, rather than when you're just having the usual ups and downs that relationships fall into. How do you know if someone is actually toxic and it's not just that you're doing something wrong? One of the first and most important tells is that toxic people will undermine you at every turn. They'll make fun of you, not in that way that we sometimes do with our friends, but they'll just really hit you in the places that you really care about. They'll tell you that you're a loser, either directly insulting you or by just never letting you forget all those mistakes you've made, all those times you failed or screwed up. This isn't always as obvious as it sounds. A lot of times this shows up like concern. They don't want you to get your hopes up or to try too hard because remember all those other times you did and it didn't work because you're just no good? A lot of times, they'll humiliate you or make fun of you in front of other people with a joke about something stupid that you did, or telling a funny story about, hey, remember that time you did something stupid and how embarrassed you were? You know, like you could ever forget that. Or that you don't wake up in the middle of the night because suddenly you couldn't stop thinking about it. Toxic people may try to isolate you from your friends, from your family, really from anyone who might serve as a support network. Sometimes it can be incredibly obvious, and they'll just tell you they can't stand so-and-so and that they don't like that you're hanging out with them. Other times, they'll try to control your time so that you don't have the opportunity to see anybody else. And after all, if you're really friends or lovers or partners, then you do everything together. Or else. Toxic people always make demands on you, insisting that you take on responsibilities that aren't yours to handle. That could be anything from managing their emotions and making sure they never get too lonely, too jealous, or too upset. It could be insisting that you take on responsibilities at work that aren't part of your job description. But hey, you're a team player, right? Come on. Be a bro. Be an MVP. Don't let down the team. We're family here. One constant of toxic people is that there is always the threat of consequences. Do this, or I'll do this other thing, and it'll be all your fault. This is where it gets incredibly insidious, because these threats always put the blame on you. You didn't agree to do this thing that you hate, so now they'll just have to find someone who will do that for them. And if that means your partner ends up cheating on you, or your coworker has to talk to your manager about your attitude problem, well, whose fault is that, really? Because now you're being unreasonable. Honestly, if you really loved them, you would do this. Or worse, you didn't do it and now they're forced to hurt themselves. You know how upset this makes them and what they end up doing when they get upset. So now their health, possibly even their lives, depend on your doing what they say. This has the benefit of making you feel like you're always on the edge of losing something important, that this relationship is always teetering on the verge of falling apart if you don't do everything perfectly, and it's all your fault. So really, when you think about it, you're the bad guy here. You don't want to be the unreasonable one, do you? No matter what happens, they always shift the burden of responsibility to you, and they'll try to manipulate you into accepting it. They'll try to trap you in commitments by using your words against you, or force you to agree with them, not persuade, force by logic. Because you said this and that and this other thing, so clearly that means that you would do this thing that you don't want. Toxic people look for folks who have low self-esteem or low confidence. They're easier to manipulate, they're easier to control, and it's a lot easier to convince them that they're complicit in being taken advantage of. One of the things I hear about from guys all the time, especially self-described nice guys, is that either they're afraid of being led around by a woman who's just going to use them, or that they have been strung around by somebody who just kept dangling the possibilities in front of them, giving little hints that maybe if they did this, then she might go out on a date with them. And they end up being terrified of losing their chance with this person by ever saying no. Now, listening to all of that, you would be forgiven for thinking that toxic people are all mustache-twirling villains, cartoonish abusers, strutting around with Under My Thumb playing on in the background, laughing at how they're just shamelessly manipulating people, and isn't that awesome? Although, considering that the seduction industry sells products that literally promise mind control powers, maybe some of them do. But not everyone who's toxic or manipulative thinks they're toxic or is plotting how to control you. Sometimes this comes from a place of fear or insecurity. Sometimes it's even coming from a place where they think that they're being caring or trying to do what's best for you. But that doesn't make it any better or less toxic or less corrosive to your self-esteem. So, how do you protect yourself from toxic people? And how do you get them out of your life if they're already there? The secret is very simple. You have to set and enforce your boundaries. You have to be willing to stand up for yourself and to advocate for your own needs and your own well-being. Notice very carefully that I said it was simple, not easy. In fact, it can be incredibly f***ing hard. It means being willing to stand up to people who may be important to you, because not all the toxic people in your life are going to be strangers or romantic partners. Sometimes they'll be family members. Sometimes they'll be people that you consider to be friends. And that can be hard enough. But people who rely on your having poor boundaries thrive on pressuring you into giving up or to not enforcing them. Because, come on, be reasonable here. Let's talk this out. Everybody else is okay with it, so why are you making such a big deal out of it? You used to be fun. Come, let us reason together. This is why the answer is no. Just no. You're my friend, my brother, my mom, my dad, and I love you, but I'm not going to let you guilt me into something I don't want to do. So, no. You don't want to argue, you don't want to rationalize, and you don't want to explain. Whenever you give any reason beyond no, I don't want to, then what's happened is that you've gone from enforcing your boundaries to the opening stages of a negotiation. When you give someone a reason or an excuse, then what you've done is tell them that there are circumstances under which you would be willing to do the thing that you don't want to do. Once you've opened that door a crack, they'll shove it open the rest of the way. They'll start coming up with counter arguments and suggestions that would invalidate your excuses, and now you're stuck in the position of having to defend your reason for refusing, at which point either you have to come up with even more excuses that they will also pick apart, or you have to admit that you were lying, and now they have even more leverage over you. Especially if they turn right around and throw your own words right back at you. And honestly, logic and reason won't help you here because they're not actually being logical. They're using the appearance of logic to disguise what is really emotional pressure. And the people who are most likely to want to reason with you are very good at using those logical arguments against you. Some have even trained specifically to do this. People who use high-pressure sales tactics, the people trying to convince you that you need to go to their Bible study group, they already know all of the most common arguments that you're going to use, and they know how to respond to them. This is why no is a complete sentence. No is your saving throw with advantage, it's your force field, it's your Tybalt that casts aside their Capoferro. Refusing to engage, being willing to break that social contract leaves them without leverage, because you can't shame someone who's utterly shameless. You don't have to be rude, but you do have to be firm. I'm sorry, but no. Thank you, but no. I appreciate the thought, but no, are all valid responses. Because I asked you not to, because I don't want to, because I told you before that I don't want that, don't like that, wasn't interested, are all perfectly polite ways of enforcing your boundaries. You don't need to be reasonable, you don't need to explain, you said no, and that's the end of it. Now, part of why this can be hard is because it's very easy to feel like you're being inconsiderate or selfish by refusing. And the way that you can tell the difference between being selfish and having strong boundaries is by being self-aware and honest with yourself about your responsibilities and why you're refusing. Are you being asked to do things that are harmful or take on responsibilities that aren't yours? Are you being asked to do things outside of your role, especially when other people will get credit for it? Are you being asked to clean up somebody else's messes, especially when that's not actually your responsibility? Those are times when it is incredibly important to enforce your boundaries. On the other hand, are you neglecting your real responsibility to others? Are you standing firm because this is something you honestly can't do or don't want? Or are you shucking off things that you would just rather not do because they're inconvenient or a little unpleasant? Are you always having to have your way on the issues that matter? Are you refusing to compromise or refusing to participate in something regarding your relationship where the responsibilities are shared equally? That's when you're being selfish. It's important to ask yourself these questions because there will be times when you may not be sure if you've gone too far. Well-meaning people may very well feel like you're being unreasonable. And that's a risk you have to take because you can set your boundaries wherever you choose. Your boundaries are not a democracy. But then again, neither are the boundaries of anyone else. Just as other people may disagree with you set your boundaries, you may disagree with other people where they've set theirs. However, a very important part of enforcing your boundaries means that you will have to be willing to accept that there will be consequences for doing so. People, especially people who are used to relying on your poor boundaries, don't like to be told no, and they will punish you for it. They'll get mad, they may yell, they may make fun of you, they may try to humiliate you, or make a public spectacle out of you in order to use social pressure against you. They may make a production out of how unreasonable you're being in order to drag other people in, so now you're not just saying no to them, you have to do it in full view of other folks who may also think that you're just being stubborn. They'll try to guilt you into giving in, or use fear against you. Your partner may threaten to cheat on you or to leave you if you don't give in. And it may not be a threat. They may actually go and do it. And you have to be willing to deal with that. That's part of the price of establishing and maintaining your boundaries, because otherwise, you're not enforcing your boundaries. You're just putting up token resistance and giving in to pressure. And honestly, that makes people even more likely to push you when you say no the next time, because now they know that if they push you just right, you're gonna give in. I'm not gonna lie to you. It will be hard. You will doubt yourself. But if it's something that's important to you, then you need to stand strong. By having boundaries and enforcing them, you will make people angry. You will lose friends and lovers and chase away people who might otherwise have been part of your life. And that's a good thing. Those are all people you should be getting rid of. And while chasing those people out of your life may be hard at first, you will soon realize how much better you feel with them gone. It'll be like you've taken a massive weight off your shoulders, or that you can breathe again. You'll start to appreciate the friends and partners you do have and how much more meaningful those relationships are. Pushing away toxic people can be hard. It can be intimidating. But it's only scary because you don't realize how much better your life could be without them. Having strong boundaries, being willing to stand up for yourself, will keep toxic people out of your life and make sure that the people that you do let in are the right ones for you. Thanks for watching my video. So now that you've heard from me, I want to hear from you. Gentlemen, how did you learn to maintain your boundaries? What helped you stand strong when you most needed it? Share your stories, your tips, and your techniques in the comments below. I can't wait to read them. Meanwhile, when you're ready to get out there and find that special someone, but you feel like you could use a little help, that's when you need to check out my book, New Game Plus, The Geek's Guide to Love, Sex, and Dating. This is your all-purpose guide to meeting and dating amazing women. It's the instruction manual we all wish we had gotten as soon as we hit puberty. Links to buy it are in the show notes, so go check it out. And if you do check it out, or any of my other books for that matter, do me a huge favor and be sure to rate and review it on Amazon and Goodreads. It's a huge help, and I always appreciate it. If you're digging the series, we've been here before, you know what to do. Hit that thumbs up, share it with your friends, like, share, subscribe, you know the routine. But if you are really enjoying these videos, and I mean really enjoying them, if you feel like you're getting a lot out of it, you're finding that it's helping you, and you want to support the channel, and in the process, help fund some awesome new projects, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/drnerdlove. Even $1 is a huge help because it helps cover hosting and equipment costs. It literally keeps the lights on. And like I'm always saying, I can't do this without the help of my patrons. So whether you have just joined me or you've been a patron from the very beginning, thank you all so very much. Meanwhile, you can follow me on Twitter at @drnerdlove. You can keep up with the latest news by joining the Facebook page at facebook.com/drnerdlove. And while you're there, be sure to join the Dr. NerdLove Facebook discussion group as well, especially because I'm going to be doing some live events there and you don't want to miss out on that. And as always, hit that logo to subscribe, check out my other videos, and I will see you here next time with more about love, sex, and dating. Later.